Let me tell you about one of the most amazing natural feats, the migration of the monarch butterfly. Every year, these tiny, delicate creatures make an epic journey from North America all the way down to Mexico, and then back again. But what's even more mind-blowing is how they do it. You see, this migration isn't just a one-time trip for a single butterfly. No, it actually takes 4 full generations to complete the cycle. That means the butterflies flying back north in spring are the great-grandchildren of the ones that left months earlier. Here's where it gets wild. Even though none of those returning monarchs have ever been to the exact spots their ancestors started from, they somehow manage to find the very same trees. It's like they've got a built-in GPS passed down through generations. The mystery of how they manage this epic feat is still not fully understood, but it's a beautiful reminder of just how incredible nature can be. 4 generations, thousands of miles, and yet the monarch always finds its way home. Isn't that just magical? Alright, here's a mystery that sounds straight out of a crime thriller, but it really happened in Melbourne. Imagine this. An unidentified man spends 5 hours in a bathroom stall at the Channel 9 TV station building, methodically stuffing $100,000 in cash into a trash can. Now, that alone is bizarre enough, right? But it doesn't end there. About a week later, a plumber gets called in to fix a clogged pipe in the same building. And what does he find? Not your usual blockage, but thousands of dollars in cash, literally clogging the plumbing. Can you imagine his shock? To this day, nobody knows who this mystery man was or what possessed him to dispose of such a large amount of money in such a strange way. Was it an attempt to hide the cash? Or perhaps some bizarre, unsolved scheme? One thing's for sure, this is a mystery that still leaves everyone scratching their heads. Let's dive into one of Brazil's most puzzling and chilling unsolved mysteries, the lead mask mystery. In 1966, the bodies of 2 electronic repairmen, Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel José Viana, were discovered on Vintém Hill in Rio de Janeiro. But this wasn't just any ordinary crime scene. These men were found wearing suits, waterproof coats, and, here's the eerie part, lead eye masks. You know, the kind you might use to protect yourself from radiation, but there was no radiation anywhere near them. Beside their bodies were a few strange items: towels, an empty water bottle, and most unsettling of all, a notebook with a cryptic message. It read, translated from Portuguese, 4:30 p.m. be at the determined place. 6:30 p.m. swallow capsules. After effect, protect metals. Wait for mask signal. What capsules? What effect? And what were they waiting for? To this day, no one knows what those lead masks were really for or why the men took capsules, if they did. Some speculate that they were part of a strange ritual, while others think it might have been tied to a scientific experiment or even extraterrestrial beliefs. But no solid explanation has ever been found, leaving the lead mask mystery one of the most bizarre unsolved cases to date. Let's talk about one of the strangest urban legends to come out of the early 2000s, the Monkey Man of Delhi. Imagine this. It's the middle of the night in India's bustling capital, and people are terrified to fall asleep. Why? Because rumors have spread that a creature called the Monkey Man is roaming the streets. Descriptions of him varied, but most people claimed he was about 5 feet tall, with a monkey-like face, and he only came out between midnight and 4 a.m. The story goes that he would attack unsuspecting people during those late hours, creating widespread panic. What's wild is that the fear grew so intense that some people stopped sleeping at night altogether just to stay on guard. People reported sightings, and some even claimed to have been attacked. But despite the hysteria, no one ever really figured out if the Monkey Man was a real creature, a person playing a cruel prank, or just a case of mass hysteria. To this day, the Monkey Man remains a mystery. Was he real, or just a figment of people's imaginations fueled by fear and rumors? The truth is still up for debate.
Let's take a trip back to medieval England for one of the strangest stories you'll ever hear, the mystery of the Green Children of Woolpit. According to a 12th century chronicler named William of Newburgh, 2 children, a boy and a girl, were found in the village of Woolpit during the reign of King Stephen, around 1135 to 1154. But here's the weird part, these kids weren't just lost, they were green. Yes, their skin was green and their clothes were made from materials no one had ever seen before. The villagers, naturally baffled, tried to feed them, but the children refused everything except raw beans at first. After a while, though, they started eating regular food, and their skin eventually lost its green colour. As they learned the local language, they told a story about coming from a place called the Land of St. Martin, a land where the sun barely shines, and twilight is all they knew. So, who were these kids? That's the big question. Some believe they were simply malnourished or poisoned, which might explain the greenish hue. Others, of course, have gone down the rabbit hole with wilder theories, like aliens. The most realistic explanation? They might have been Flemish children who got lost or orphaned during the chaos of King Stephen's reign. Flemish immigrants weren't exactly welcomed with open arms, and by the time Henry II took the throne, they were being targeted and cast out of England. Maybe these poor kids were caught in the middle of that. But what do you think? Were the green children of Woolpit lost travellers, victims of war, or something out of this world? Drop your thoughts below. Let's dive into one of the world's most baffling mysteries, the Voynich manuscript. Rediscovered in 1912 by a bookseller named Wilfrid Voynich, this ancient text dates back to the 15th century and has been puzzling experts ever since. Why? Well, it's filled with strange, undeciphered words, codes, and bizarre images of plants, stars, and even what some say look like aliens. Now you'd think after all this time someone would have cracked the code, right? Nope. Forensic specialists, historians, cryptologists, pretty much every expert you can imagine have tried their hand at figuring out what the manuscript says. It's divided into 6 sections, covering everything from botany and astronomy to cosmology and even recipes. But despite finding a few familiar symbols like Latin letters and Arabic numerals, the majority of it remains a total mystery. There are theories, of course. Some scholars, like Egyptologist Rainer Hannig, believe it's written in a language based on Hebrew. Meanwhile, Nicholas Gibbs stirred the pot in 2017, suggesting it's actually just a mix of plagiarized ancient health manuals. So what do you think? Is the Voynich manuscript a secret code, a forgotten language, or just an elaborate hoax? Let's hear your theories. Let's talk about one of history's most mysterious and terrifying weapons, Greek fire. First used by the Byzantine Empire in the 670s, this stuff was no ordinary fire. Imagine being in a naval battle and suddenly your ship is hit with flames that burn on water. You can't put it out and the fire spreads rapidly, engulfing everything. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Greek fire wasn't the first incendiary weapon, but what made it so infamous was its effectiveness and the fact that no one really knows what it was made of. The Byzantines kept the formula a closely guarded secret, and to this day historians are still guessing. Some think it might have been a mix of sulphur, quicklime or saltpeter, but the exact recipe is lost to history. The Byzantines used this artificial fire to devastating effect in naval warfare, spraying it onto enemy ships, where it burned fiercely, impossible to extinguish. It was a game-changer in battles and a weapon that struck fear into anyone who faced it. So, what do you think? Was Greek fire the ultimate ancient weapon, or just a clever piece of military tech that's taken on a legendary status? Let me know in the comments. Picture this. It's the summer of 1518 in Strasbourg, part of the Holy Roman Empire, and suddenly people start dancing, not just for fun, non-stop, day and night, for months. This wasn't your average festival. It was what historians now call the dancing plague. And it all started with one woman, Frau Trophea. She stepped into the street, started dancing, and simply couldn't stop. She danced for days, bloodying her feet and exhausting herself, but she wasn't alone for long. Soon, hundreds of people joined in, spinning and leaping through the streets without rest. Imagine this. It's 1483, and England is in chaos after the death of King Edward IV. His 2 young sons, Edward, 12, and Richard, 9, are taken to the Tower of London by their uncle, the Duke of Gloucester. Sounds like a protective move, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to keep the future king safe during the Wars of the Roses? But here's where things get murky. Their uncle, the Duke, didn't just act as their guardian. Oh no, he quickly had the boys declared illegitimate and then snagged the throne for himself, becoming Richard III. So, what happened to the princes? That's the big mystery. Once they were placed in the tower, no one ever saw them again. Many believe Richard III had them killed to lock down his reign. But there's no smoking gun, no evidence to prove it. And then there's the twist. Some say the boys actually escaped, sparking rumours across Europe. A guy named Perkin Warbeck even popped up years later, claiming to be young Richard, throwing everyone for a loop. Fast forward to today and the mystery still lingers. Bones have been found at the Tower and at St George's Chapel, but nothing definitive. Even DNA tests have been denied by the Crown, so we're still left wondering, what really happened to the princes in the Tower? It's one of those unsolved mysteries that keeps historians and conspiracy theorists up at night. What do you think? Were they murdered, or did they somehow escape? Let me know in the comments.
Let's talk about the Cerne Abbas giant, a massive 180-foot-tall chalk figure carved into a hillside in Dorset, England. For years, no one could agree on when it was made, with guesses ranging from prehistoric times to the post-medieval era. But in 2021, researchers finally nailed down its age. It was created sometime between 700 and 1100 AD, right in the middle of the Anglo-Saxon period. While it's cool to finally know when this giant was drawn, the bigger mystery remains, why was it created in the first place? Some local legends suggest the figure represents a real-life giant, while others lean towards more symbolic interpretations. One popular theory, especially from Victorian times, is that the giant is linked to fertility. People used to visit the site hoping it would help with infertility issues. So what do you think? Was this chalk giant a symbol of strength, fertility, or something else entirely? Let me know your theories. Let's unravel one of the greatest mysteries in religious history, the Shroud of Turin. Measuring over 14 feet long and 3.5 feet wide, this ancient cloth is believed by many to bear the image of Jesus of Nazareth. Some claim it's his actual burial shroud, but ever since it first appeared in the 14th century, there's been endless debate about its authenticity. Scientists have put the shroud through the ringer with countless tests. One study dated it to between 1260 and 1390. Suggesting it's a medieval creation, while a 2013 infrared assessment threw everyone for a loop by dating it much earlier, between 280 BCE and 220 CE. To make things even murkier, tests on pollen and blood found on the cloth haven't provided any clear answers either. Whether it's the true burial cloth of Jesus or not, the Shroud of Turin became widely known during the Middle Ages and was first mentioned in France in the 1350s. By 1578, it had found a permanent home in Turin, Italy, where it got its name. Yet despite all the investigations and debates, we're left with more questions than answers. As one forensic scientist put it, we're not dealing with things we really know about. So, what do you think? Is the Shroud of Turin the real deal or just an elaborate artifact from the past? Drop your thoughts below. All right, let's dive into the life of Genghis Khan, but in a way that feels like we're chatting over coffee. So picture this. Genghis Khan, founder of the largest contiguous empire in history, a man who united the Mongol tribes and led some of the fiercest conquests the world has ever seen. His rule wasn't just about brute force, though. He established a functional meritocracy long before his death in 1227. But here's where the story gets really interesting. No one actually knows how Genghis Khan died. It could have been a battle injury, maybe some illness. And as for where he's buried, well, that's still one of history's biggest unsolved mysteries. One version of the story claims he was buried right where he died, with no grand tomb or marker. Another, darker theory suggests that his funeral procession went to extreme lengths to keep the burial site secret, killing anyone they encountered on the way, and then, after burying their leader, they even killed themselves to protect the location. This secrecy has sparked centuries of fascination. Researchers have scoured ancient texts, used modern tech like satellite imagery, and even trekked across the Mongolian landscape. But as one local resident, Welun, put it, if they wanted us to find it, they would have left some sign. So maybe Genghis Khan's final resting place is meant to stay a mystery, but doesn't that just make it all the more intriguing? Let's take a trip back to the late 15th century and dive into the mysterious story of John Cabot, or Giovanni Caboto as he was originally known. This Italian explorer is credited with discovering Newfoundland and claiming Canada for England in 1497. Now, that alone is pretty impressive, but Cabot's story doesn't end there. In fact, it takes a rather mysterious turn. After his successful landing in North America, Cabot returned to England pumped up and ready for more. He assembled a second expedition in 1498, aiming to reach Asia, but here's the kicker: he vanished. Yep, Cabot and his fleet of 5 ships with 300 men simply disappeared. One ship did turn back near Ireland after a nasty storm, and some speculate Cabot might have been on board. But most historians think he pressed on, only to be lost at sea. Then there's the intriguing twist. Researcher Alwyn Ruddock believed Cabot didn't vanish but actually made it back to the New World and stayed there until 1500. Although Ruddock never published her findings, the University of Bristol's Cabot Project has continued her work, finding some evidence that Cabot explored further down the eastern coast of North America. He might have even had an Italian cleric with him who founded a settlement. To make things even more puzzling, Cabot's name shows up in documents from 1500 in London, suggesting he might have returned from his voyages, or at least that he was still alive at the time. Did he make another trip across the Atlantic? We may never know for sure, but the mystery surrounding John Cabot's final days makes his story all the more fascinating. One of the most exciting ongoing debates in archaeology right now revolves around the question, when did humans first settle in the Americas? It's a mystery that keeps evolving, and it's fascinating to watch the story unfold in real time. For years, the general consensus was that humans first arrived around 13,000 years ago, crossing the Bering Land Bridge from Asia. But in recent years, that timeline has been pushed back further and further, thanks to new, sometimes controversial discoveries. Sites like the one in Mexico's Chiquihuite Cave have yielded evidence suggesting humans were present as far back as 30,000 years ago. At first, these earlier dates caused a lot of debate, with many archaeologists skeptical. But as more evidence piles up, from tools to bones to ancient footprints, what was once controversial is becoming harder to deny. The further back the timeline goes, the more complex the story of human migration becomes, and it's rewriting what we thought we knew about the earliest Americans. And the most thrilling part, we still don't have all the answers, and each new discovery adds another piece to this ancient puzzle. Who knows what could be uncovered next? Let's talk about one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in ancient history, the Indus Valley script. Now, the Indus Valley civilization, which thrived from around 3300 to 1300 BC in what is now northern India and Pakistan, was one of the earliest urban civilizations in the world. They built highly advanced cities with intricate drainage systems, engaged in long-distance trade, and, here's the kicker, may have independently invented writing, a feat achieved only about 5 or 6 times in history. But here's the frustrating part. Despite having thousands of inscriptions and documented contact with other major civilizations of the time, no one has been able to decipher their script. There's no Rosetta Stone to crack the code, no surviving descendant scripts, and no records from other civilizations that document or translate it. The symbols carved on seals and pottery are just sitting there waiting for someone to finally understand them. Imagine the potential insights into ancient culture, trade, or even everyday life that could be unlocked if we ever managed to decode this writing. But for now, the script of the Indus Valley remains an enigma, a mystery lost in time. The murder of Missy Beavers is one of those cases that leaves you with more questions than answers and chills down your spine. In the early morning hours, Missy, a fitness instructor, was at a church in Midlothian, Texas, preparing to teach a class. Tragically, she was killed there, but it's the details that make this case truly bizarre. Security footage from the church shows the murderer wandering the halls before Missy arrived, dressed head to toe in police riot gear. Now, we're not talking about a cheap Halloween costume. This was full tactical gear, making the figure look almost like a cop, but with one big difference. They didn't seem to have a clear purpose, just roaming the halls as if waiting for something or someone. The footage itself is haunting. The movements of the person in riot gear are unsettling, and the fact that they haven't been identified adds another layer of mystery. Despite several theories floating around, no one has been officially named a suspect, and the motive remains unclear. Was it a targeted attack, a random act of violence? We still don't know, and years later, Missy Beavers' murder remains unsolved. It's one of those cases that sticks with you, especially after watching that eerie footage. It's funny how we often feel like we have a solid grasp on how the universe works, especially with physics being such a well-grounded discipline. But here's the mind-blowing part. Despite all we know, we're still pretty much in the dark, literally, about most of the universe. Take dark matter and dark energy. We believe that dark matter makes up 27% of the universe and dark energy a staggering 68%. That means the stuff we actually understand, everything from stars and planets to black holes, accounts for less than 5%. And yet we have no idea what dark matter and dark energy really are. We can't see them, we can't directly measure them, but we know they're there because we can observe their effects on the universe, like how galaxies rotate or how the universe is expanding. It's wild to think that most of the universe remains a complete mystery. And it's a humbling reminder that while we've come so far in understanding the cosmos, there's still so much left to discover.
Let me tell you about one of nature's most fascinating rivalries, the Chechém and Chaka trees, found in parts of Central America. These trees, often growing side by side, have a relationship that's as strange as it is intriguing. The Chechém tree is notorious for its toxic sap. Just brushing against its bark can cause severe blistering rashes, almost like a chemical burn. Its sap is so potent that even a slight touch can leave you with painful, oozing blisters that take days to heal. Locals know to steer clear of this tree, as its poison can cause intense discomfort. But here's the wild part. The antidote to the Chechém's venom is found in its neighbor, the Chaka tree. Often called the healing tree, the Chaka grows right next to the Chechém, as if nature herself knew balance was necessary. The sap from the Chaka tree can soothe the exact rash caused by the Chechém, offering relief from the fiery irritation. What makes this duo even more fascinating is how they're always found together, almost as if they need each other. It's a striking reminder of how nature can be both harsh and healing, offering danger and its remedy in the same space. It's like a perfectly balanced dance of poison and cure, side by side in the tropical forests. Would you dare to wander near them, knowing that where one harms, the other heals? It's an extraordinary relationship, one of the many wonders hidden in the wilds of Central America. The Georgia Guidestones, often called America's Stonehenge, have sparked fascination and controversy since their erection in 1980. Located in Elbert County, Georgia, the monument was made up of 4 16-foot-tall panels arranged in a cross pattern. These massive slabs weren't just decorative. They functioned as a sundial, an astronomical calendar, and, perhaps most notably, were inscribed with a set of 10 guidelines for living in what was termed an Age of Reason. These inscriptions were carved in 8 different languages, offering guidance on topics like population control, environmental stewardship, and human unity. However, it's not just their purpose that stirred curiosity. There's mystery surrounding their very existence. The individual or group that commissioned the stones has remained anonymous, hiding behind the pseudonym R.C. Christian. As you can imagine, this shroud of secrecy has fueled endless speculation. Some believed the messages promoted a new world order, while others took them as a sign of something more sinister, even calling the Guidestones satanic. The stones' notoriety reached its peak on July 7, 2022, when they were destroyed in an explosion. In the early hours of the morning, part of the monument was blown up, and despite security footage showing the explosion, the culprit remains unidentified. Was it an act of vandalism, or something more symbolic? We may never know, but the destruction of the Guidestones has only deepened the enigma, leaving behind just as many questions as answers. So, what do you think? A symbol of unity or a beacon for conspiracy theories? Either way, the Georgia Guidestones and their dramatic end ensure they won't be forgotten anytime soon.
In the small, quiet town of Taos, New Mexico, there's an eerie mystery that has puzzled residents and scientists alike for decades. A strange, low-frequency buzz often described as the hum of a distant diesel engine. This sound, known as the Taos hum, isn't your average noise. What makes it so unusual is that, while some people can hear it clearly with their own ears, no sound detection devices have ever been able to pick it up. It's as if the hum exists, just out of reach of modern technology. What's even more baffling is that not everyone can hear it. For those who do, the hum is constant and persistent, sometimes driving people to distraction. It's not overly loud, but its droning presence is impossible to ignore for those who are sensitive to it. Despite multiple investigations and various theories, ranging from secret military experiments to geological explanations, No one has been able to pinpoint exactly where the hum comes from or how it's produced. Is it a quirk of human perception or something deeper and more mysterious that our instruments simply can't detect? The Taos hum remains one of those fascinating, unsolved enigmas that keeps people guessing. If you ever find yourself in Taos, keep your ears open. You just might hear it for yourself. Just outside the CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, stands an enigmatic sculpture that has fascinated cryptographers, puzzle enthusiasts, and intelligence professionals for decades. This captivating artwork, known as Kryptos, was created by sculptor Jim Sanborn with a bold message. Every mystery can be unraveled through patterns and clues. The sculpture features 4 sections of encoded messages, 3 of which have already been deciphered. However, the 4th section remains unsolved despite numerous attempts by some of the brightest minds in the world, including those within the CIA itself. To this day, the final 97-character code remains a mystery, challenging anyone daring enough to try and crack its secrets. What lies within that final message? For now, only Jim Sanborn knows. Could you be the one to finally unlock it? In the heart of Staffordshire, England, lies a centuries-old enigma carved into the Shepherd's Monument at Shugborough Hall. This 18th-century sculpture has intrigued historians, codebreakers, and intellectuals for over 250 years, all drawn in by a mysterious inscription, Duos Varvem. Despite countless efforts by some of the sharpest minds, including those of historians and even the famed codebreakers of Bletchley Park, the meaning behind these letters remains unsolved. Theories have ranged from secret messages hidden by the Knights Templar to clues about hidden treasure, but no one has definitively cracked the code. Even after all this time, the inscription stands as one of history's great unsolved puzzles, leaving us to wonder, what secret could it be hiding? Often referred to as the American Stonehenge, the Georgia Guidestones, located in Elbert County, have baffled and intrigued visitors since their construction in 1979. Standing tall and enigmatic, these massive granite slabs are inscribed with 10 new commandments written in 8 languages: English, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, Russian, and Spanish. These guidelines cover topics like population control, environmental conservation, and global unity, but their purpose and intended audience remain a mystery. Adding to the intrigue, the person or group behind the monument used the pseudonym R.C. Christian, and no one has ever definitively determined their true identity. The combination of secrecy and the monument's cryptic messages has fueled endless speculation about its meaning, leaving the Georgia Guidestones shrouded in mystery to this day.